under die helle Zimmer.
This is Palma de Mallorca ATC information Charlie. At time 1530 Zulu, expect ILS approach arrival runway 24 left departure runway 24 right, transition level 075, wind 310 degrees 6 knots, visibility more than 10 kilometers. Few at tower cumulus detected 1,800 feet. Scattered 2,400 feet, temperature 14, 2.9 QNH 1011. Nose 80s was Palma de Mallorca information Charlie.
Hey guys, welcome to a short VATSIM flight from Palma de Mallorca, Lima Echo Papa Alpha. We've just been listening in on the latest weather information, which is information Charlie.
This is approach frequency, Palma Tower frequency.
Oh, that's interesting. I was just about to contact Palma Approach here, but apparently the tower frequency has just opened up, so let's switch over to tower 118.3. Alright, in part 2 of the Cabri review, we have the aircraft already fired up. And we're about to fly a short scenic flight around the beautiful island of Mallorca, Spain. We'll be trekking north from the rather busy international airport and then follow along the magnificent cliffs of the northwestern shoreline to return via visual reporting point Whiskey and land at a small GA airport called Son Bonet, Lima Echo Sierra Bravo. VFR traffic is to exit and enter the control zone of Palma de Mallorca via visual reporting points, and unless instructed otherwise, must fly no higher than 1,000 feet AGL, so above ground level. Alright, let's call Palma Tower. Palma Tower, helicopter Echo Charlie Lima India Victor.
Helicopter Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, Palma Tower. Very good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Helicopter Echo Charlie Lima India Victor is a Guimbal Cabri at the ramp with information Charlie, VFR departure to the north.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, I will need a flight plan for you.
Oh, so sorry, I'm going to file it. Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. Ha! Classic. Echo Charlie Lima India Victor has filed a flight plan. That's not the first time that I forgot to file a flight plan, but no worries, you can do it on the fly via the VATSIM client vPilot that you can see on the bottom right corner of the screen.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, Roger, I have your flight plan. So runway 24 right, wind 070 degrees 7 knots, and QNH is 1011, read squawk 7001.
We expect runway 24 right for departure 1011 and squawk is 7001, Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. Set the transponder to 7001 and make sure to activate mode Charlie before departure.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, readback is correct. I will be back with you. Stand by for the moment. Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, okay, so readback is correct. And call me when ready for taxi.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor is ready to taxi.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, taxi to holding point runway 24 right via Lima Juliet Link North.
Taxi to holding point runway 24 right via Lima Juliet Link North, Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. Always have your airport diagram ready to make yourself a mental picture of where you need to go. We're going to follow taxiway Lima from the GA ramp on the southern apron. We're going to do a left turn and take the first exit onto the Link taxiway, which links the southern and the northern aprons. Also notice that November 2, 3, 4 and 5 are not available for interception departures. Alright, now that we know where to go, let's pick it up. A little too much left cyclic apparently. That sudden yaw to the right on liftoff is still one of the issues that I have with the flight model. It seems as if friction between the skids and the ground doesn't reduce gradually as the airframe ascends, but rather sudden like the flip of a switch. Same goes for the touchdown, in fact. Once your right skid makes contact with the ground, you sort of have to immediately step off of the pedals, or the heli will start to pivot around that skid. The helicopter climbs quite easily, maybe that's due to our 7-knot headwind at the moment. Hover taxiing, as demonstrated in my last video, is fairly easy and feels quite natural. I'm hovering a little bit high here, but then again it is always difficult to judge altitude in a desktop simulator. Also, I tend to hover a little bit higher in windy conditions. Once a gust of wind dies down, the helicopter might drop significantly in altitude. So wind can give you additional lift through your rotor disc, pretty much as ETL would, so the helicopter's performance in windy conditions can be actually quite a bit better. However, they can be harder to control in a hover, of course. Took me a while to actually see it, but there's a small GA aircraft and a forklift coming our way on taxiway Lima. This naturally shouldn't happen at a controlled airfield, however I'm guessing that this is some sort of AI traffic that I didn't deactivate in my Microsoft Flight Simulator settings. There was a Lufthansa directed to gate 9 or 8 via Lima, however this can't be it. ATC would have notified us, they would have told us to hold our position or give way to the airliner, and also the aircraft just veered off towards runway 24 left, which is only active for arrival today. So alright, let's fast forward a little bit. As one of the main tourism destinations in the Mediterranean, the Balearic Islands, especially Mallorca, can get quite busy in the holiday season. There's not too much going on at the airport right now, but you can see that it is quite a large aerodrome. We're now taxiing along the link, which links the southern apron and the southern runway to the northern part of the airfield. The apron coming up on our right is exclusively used by military aircraft, I believe.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, line up and wait, runway 24 right.
Line up and wait, runway 24 right, Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. Lining up and wait means that we are allowed to enter the runway, lining up the aircraft for takeoff, but we have to wait for a takeoff clearance. When doing hovering turns, it seems like the Guimbal Cabri has quite a lot of inertia actually for such a small and lightweight aircraft. Also not that sensitive to cyclic input, so more on the Bell 47 side than on the AS350 side, if you know what I mean. Runway 24 right is still the active runway, even though the winds seem to have changed significantly in the last few minutes, from 310 degrees to 070 degrees, making us taking off with a tailwind. You can see the helicopter becoming rather unstable with wind from the rear. That's pretty accurate modeling here. I have to actually pull aft on the cyclic a bit to oppose the forces of the wind pushing me forward. It was hard to see in the fast forwarding, but there was actually an aircraft taking off runway 24 right before us.
Lufthansa 99 Yankee, you are still here?
That's the one. He didn't switch over to the approach frequency, and tower is waiting for the wake turbulence to subside before he gives us our takeoff clearance, I guess.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, after departure, go to November Whiskey, surface wind 070 degrees 7 knots, runway 24 right, clear for takeoff.
Runway 24 right, clear for takeoff, and we'll report November Whiskey, helicopter Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. Now, I'm not exactly following the recommended takeoff profile, however I wanted to check the engine's performance doing a sort of a high power takeoff. Our takeoff weight is 1,416, probably a little less due to the prolonged hover taxiing. So we are not maxed out, but not that lightweight either. The helicopter climbs away rather easily, with quite a power margin on the MLI. At around 50 knots, we see an increase in lift, which could be interpreted as ETL. However, that probably should have happened a little earlier, around 15 to 25 knots. Remember to not fly any higher than 1,000 feet AGL. Unfortunately, we do not have a radar altimeter installed. Remember, the regular altimeter is set to QNH and doesn't show you your altitude above ground. The Cabri G2 has been marketed as a training aircraft for flight schools, so it is basically the main competitor of the Robinson R22. It actually uses the same engine as the Robinson R22, the Lycoming 0360. It gets a little more horsepower out of it, maybe by a different form of derating the engine, or due to its plasma ignition. I'm not sure about that. The Cabri can carry higher gross weights, however it uses more fuel and has a lower range, and it is still quite a bit more expensive than the R22 and cannot fly as high. On the other hand, it features a Fenestron tail rotor, increasing safety on the ground, as well as a glass cockpit if you choose that extra. So it's a very nice aircraft, however it probably will not replace the R22 as a training aircraft due to economical reasons. Up ahead you see Palma de Mallorca, the capital city of the island. We will follow that highway below us, which will branch off to the right and lead us directly to the visual reporting point November Whiskey. On our 2 o'clock position lies our destination airport, Son Bonet, Lima Echo Sierra Bravo. Not too much pedal input needed in cruise flight. We're doing about 80 knots with about 80% on the MLI. We could still pull a little more power, which probably would increase our cruise speed to about 90 knots, which is accurate for a Cabri G2. Up ahead you may already make out a racetrack close to the highway. That's where November Whiskey is located.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, we contact Palm Approach on 119.4 and tell him that you're inbound November Whiskey.
Contact approach on 119.4 Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. I haven't got my SciTech radio panel that I usually use to tune in frequencies working with MSFS, so I used the active pause, which you shouldn't do on VATSIM for a prolonged period of time, and especially not if you're in a traffic pattern arriving or departing from a runway. Palmer approach, helicopter Echo Charlie Lima India Victor is inbound November Whiskey, 1,000 feet.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, Palma Control, good evening, identify, maintain frequency for traffic information, continue for navigation.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. Kind of hard to understand, the language barrier sometimes is a problem, as in the real world, I guess. At the end, I think he said resume own navigation or something like that. Of course, when in doubt, always ask the controller to repeat his message. Even though he said resume own navigation, I will still do a courtesy call at November Whiskey, letting him know what my intentions are. Of course, I wouldn't do that if the frequency was very busy. You can see the racetrack coming up on our right-hand side. In the simulator, Mallorca is one of my favorite places to fly. Haven't been there in real life for about 20 years now. Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, November Whiskey, 900 feet, proceeding north to November.
Echo India Victor, okay, Roger, Palma Control, continue navigation, no problem.
Echo India Victor. Now again, let's fast forward a little bit. The next visual reporting point for a north VFR departure would be November, which is located at a small town called Valdemossa in the mountainous regions right in front of us. I'm doing some helicopter IFR, I-fly roads here. Of course, you could also fly a heading of 347 degrees from November Whiskey to get to Valdemossa, as indicated in the flight charts. For reasons of comparison, approaching November with the MD500 in X-Plane 11. If you wonder what charts I use the visual approach charts for Lima Echo Papa Alpha and Lima Echo Sierra Bravo, as well as the VFR chart for the Balearic Islands. Now, while you have to purchase the latter chart, I think the visual approach charts may be available for free via the Spanish AIP. Official visual reporting points are usually also selectable waypoints within the databases of navigational equipment, such as GPS. The inbuilt GPS of MSFS with its limited functionality probably does not offer this. By the way, to be able to give you a better experience, I am looking for a plug-in showing the position of my helicopter controls, as you can see it on the X-Plane screen here. Should something like this already exist for MSFS, be sure to let me know in the comments. It is good practice to not use a GPS to identify visual reporting points, but rather use your eyes. After all, that's what VFR flying is all about. Navigating visually can be quite difficult, and it's easy to get lost, so you should know your way around. Quick side note on the VATSIM client, you do not necessarily have to tune in on the ATIS frequency, you can also just double click on it and receive the ATIS information in text form. Now we are approaching the northern tip of Sa Dragonera, or Dragon Island, which is named after the many small lizards to be found there. There is some artifact in the scenery. It seems like the trees are toppling off the island in a waterfall-like fashion. However, once we get closer, this gets remedied. The island is quite a bit too green. In real life, it is not clustered with trees, at least not with these kind of trees. It is more a shrub-like vegetation on the entire island. Quite similar, actually, to the kind of vegetation that you would find around Los Angeles or San Francisco. I remember doing a cruise around the island in the ship of my uncle. He once had a ship, not a luxury yacht, but a fishing vessel, in fact. I also remember diving at the north tip of the island, beautiful blue water and lots of fish. The islet itself is environmentally protected, as you can see on the flight chart. You will have to maintain an altitude of 700 feet AGL at all times if you want to fly over the island. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the visual flight chart of Mallorca, seeing as it's copyright protected, of course. If you want to seriously practice VFR flight, you should of course have the visual flight charts of the area that you fly in ready. If you want to fly in Germany or the UK or basically almost all European countries, visual flight charts need to be purchased. They're not for free. However, things look quite different if you fly in the United States or in Australia for that matter. There you can get a free digital copy of all visual flight charts available. Have a look at the AIP services of the country that you want to fly in. Or in case of the United States, you can also check out SkyVector. I am about to head back to the main island, so I will get in contact with Palma Control again. I will state my position, which is now approximately 4 miles west of the reporting point Whiskey, and I will state my intentions, which is landing at Son Bonet. Palma approach, helicopter Echo Charlie Lima India Victor is 4 miles west, Whiskey 1000 feet, inbound for landing at Son Bonet, Lima Echo Sierra Bravo.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, Palma Control. Clear, continue as your flight plan. Yes, maintain us as now 1000 feet over the ground. Continue navigation. Maintain frequency for traffic information.
We'll continue our own navigation and not above 1000, Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. With its ultra-realistic scenery based on satellite imagery, it is quite a bit easier to make out visual reporting points from the air in MSFS if you compare it to, let's say, X-plane. Getting your bearings along a shoreline is quite a bit easier, of course, than inland. There you would look out for bodies of water such as ponds, creeks, rivers. You would look for roads, highways, high power cables, settlements, big cities, forests, basically anything that helps you to find out where you are. Now that we are approaching the port of Andraich, hope I pronounced that correctly, we can see the helicopter oscillating quite a bit around its yaw axis. Now this could indicate that the in-game weather setting has changed and we are met with quite some turbulence. It could also mean that the flight model simply reacts a little weird to a certain wind angle. I can't be sure, but it definitely looks like turbulence, which would be a nice thing since it is rarely ever modeled into helicopter flight simulations. Now, one certainly could expect some form of thermal updraft above the Mallorcan mainland on a summer's day, leading to a rather choppy ride. However, this is a winter's day with only 14 degrees. I don't know how deep the weather simulation or weather engine of MSFS really goes. What I can say is that the wind definitely has an effect on the helicopter's course over ground. I particularly like these wafts of mist that we're flying through here. Beyond this mountain ridge lies the city of Palma, and we will again fly to November Whiskey to start our approach into Son Bonet Airport. The alleged turbulence is slowly dying down. Regarding control inputs in turbulence, there's not much you need to do, you just let the aircraft being tossed around.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, contact frequency tower 118.3, right?
Contact tower 118.3, Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. Now there is a way to make my radio panel work with MSFS. I need to download a software which is called FSU IPC. I haven't come around doing that yet. Unstabilized helicopters without an autopilot require hands-on flying, which makes it difficult to tune in on frequencies and handle flight charts at the same time.
06 right, for takeoff, login 49 area, thank you.
Now there's quite some moisture in the air above Palma, and visibility is getting worse. Palma Tower helicopter Echo Charlie Lima India Victor approaching November Whiskey inbound for landing at Son Bonet, Lima Echo Sierra Bravo.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, very good afternoon again. Continue November Alpha. And could you say again your intentions, please?
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor wants to land at Son Bonet Airport, Lima Echo Sierra Bravo.
Copy that for Echo Charlie Lima India Victor.
7 Portugal 565, ready for taxi.
Still not sure whether or not they understand what my intentions are. Sending me to November Alpha seems a little bit weird when I want to go to Son Bonet, so I'm going to ask the controller. Please confirm you want Echo Charlie Lima India Victor to proceed to November Alpha.
Affirm, proceed November Alpha, Echo Charlie Lima India Victor.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. Alright, if that's what they want. November Alpha is actually a visual reporting point of the main airport, not of the small Son Bonet airport. Also, November Alpha is located south of Son Bonet Aerodrome, and according to the flight charts, there are no traffic patterns allowed south of the airfield due to its proximity to the control zone of Palma International Lima Echo Papa Alpha. There was the aerodrome. To be fair, Son Bonet is an uncontrolled airport in real life, so I may have got these guys confused by contacting them in the first place.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, contact Palma approach on 119.4.
119.4, Echo Charlie Lima India Victor. Yep, successfully got him thoroughly confused. I guess Palma Control should have sent us over to Unicom. However, let's stick with it and see what happens. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about VATSIM. You can get into dynamic situations and learn something new every day. See Palma Airport already engulfed in cloud. Palma approach, helicopter Echo Charlie Lima India Victor again, approaching November Alpha for landing at Son Bonet.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, someone is in an airport, no control airport, so continue on navigation. We have in radar contact, no traffic problem in this moment in the airport, so continue on navigation.
Understood. Continue on navigation. Could you give us the winds for Son Bonet, please? Echo Charlie Lima India Victor.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, yes ma'am, please.
I'm holding above November Alpha now. He got a little confused, however, I think it all started when I was contacting him at November Whiskey, which I didn't necessarily have to do, seeing as he told me to resume my own navigation.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, wind 070 degrees 7 knots.
Thank you. We fly a right base runway 05 then, Echo Charlie Lima India Victor.
Bye, thank you, bye.
Alright, we got it sorted now. No reported traffic at Son Bonet, so I'm just going to do a right base for runway 05. The Cabri handles quite nicely in cruise flight, no surprises there. And overall, it is quite a bit better than the Bell 407 that came with the new MSFS helicopter support. I do think there's still some work to do for Asobo and Microsoft if they want to compete with other helicopter simulations in terms of realism. However, this is a very good start. I mean, this Cabri G2 is, and it definitely makes me want to explore MSFS far more than I did before. The Cabri seems to correctly react to winds and turbulence. I'm not too sure about the performance. It seems a little excessive for a lightweight helicopter such as the Cabri. However, this is just a rather uneducated guess. I'm not really familiar with this aircraft. For an articulated rotor system, the handling and responsiveness of the Cabri seems to be a little bit on the mushy side. However, again, no real-life experience on the aircraft. Maybe some of my viewers that have actually flown the Cabri might want to chip in. Asobo's Guimbal Cabri G2 offers realistic startup and shutdown procedures, translating tendency, torque-induced yaw, and effective translational lift. So the Cabri definitely has gotten more love than the default Bell 407, for which a fix has been released, supposedly making it more realistic to fly. Haven't tried that out yet. Now as we hover taxi to our parking spot, I'm going to show you an auto-rotation that I did earlier. Approaching beautiful Sedona Airport, Kilo Echo Sierra Zulu in Arizona, which in MSFS appears to be a little bit too lush green for my taste. I'm going for a straight-in, full-down run on auto-rotation, which means that I'm actually setting the helicopter onto the ground. Rolling off throttle in 3, 2, 1. As expected, a lot of left pedal needed, aft cyclic needed. Descent rate is quite extraordinary, so the ground comes up very fast. Now the flare doesn't seem to be affected at all in reducing our descent rate. Maybe I should have done it more aggressively. Now here's the weird part. Once I raise collective to cushion the landing, there seems to be an abnormal amount of lift left in those rotor blades. In fact, this small 3-bladed rotor system seems to have more inertia stored than DCS's Huey. I also did not hear a low RPM horn. In my humble opinion, the auto-rotation needs some work. However, this is the case with most of the simulators out there. Auto-rotation seems to be the most difficult thing to capture in a helicopter flight model. Now there seems to be a problem with the key binding of the two-way landing light switch that is on my hardware collective. You can hear it clicking back and forth. Now I am pretty impressed with MSFS's weather engine. Even though the Palma 8 is said NOSIG, which is short for no significant weather change expected, there were a few towering cumulus clouds mentioned which actually can have a significant impact on local weather conditions. That's probably the reason for this sudden weather change at Son Bonet Airport. Visibility has gone down, it's grey outside, and pretty soon it'll start to rain. I'm very, very impressed with this dynamic weather. Though the wind direction was set to be 070 degrees, according to my yaw string, the wind is actually coming from the right-hand side. Quite challenging to land the helicopter in these windy conditions. As mentioned in the beginning of the video, there's one thing I find questionable about the way the helicopter lifts off and touches down. The helicopter starts to pivot around the first point of contact quite aggressively and suddenly. Then again, I actually did have a slight lateral movement on touchdown. I'm not satisfied with this. I'm going to reposition the helicopter. Now will you take a look at this? There's blue skies above, however it seems we've just made it before these clouds are rolling in. Now seeing as I confused them so much, I'm going to thank ATC for having me today. Echo Charlie Lima India Victor on the ground. Thank you for your service.
Echo Charlie Lima India Victor, thanks to you. Bye. Have a good evening.
How cool are these marshallers that appear automatically once you touch down, even though you probably should never turn your back to the running engines of an aircraft. Oops, still quite gusty out there. Yep, it might have happened. I may be hooked to MSFS from now on.
Logan 49 Papa, contact Barcelona control frequency 134.45, bye.
134.45, Logan 49 Yankee Papa, thank you for your service, bye bye.
Thank you, bye.
We see the same yaw on touchdown, even though it is not as bad as it was before. I feel like it shouldn't be that way. I'm using a certain amount of right pedal input to maintain directional control. This amount of pedal input should not necessarily be different once one skid has touched the ground, but I'm going to keep investigating. Finally enough, let's quickly run through the shutdown procedure. Collective full down, friction on. There's no friction simulated, remember. Governor to off. Even though it doesn't say so in the checklist, you should probably roll off the throttle a little before deactivating the governor, or you will have an engine RPM spike. For engine cooldown, we will keep rotor RPM between 420 and 450 until the cylinder head temperature is below 180 degrees Celsius. That's the little gauge down here. Again, using the throttle to set the RPM to exact values can be quite difficult. Now let's switch off all lights except for the beacon or anti-collision lights. And we can switch off the transponder as well. I don't think you can switch off the GPS, seems to be hardwired to the battery. Once the cylinder head temperature has dropped below 180 degrees Celsius, roll off the throttle to idle and disengage the clutch. Clutch light should come on and we can kill the engine by shutting off the mixture. Switch off the magnetos and plasma ignition. Engine's off, so there's no use for the alternator or fuel pumps anymore. Switch them off. Now then we have to wait until rotor RPM is below 150, or the white arrow. This sort of took forever in this Cabri. Don't know if that's accurate. I also can't seem to open this door, but who would want to in this weather, right? Alright, I lost my patience there, and even though RPMs were still at 163, I activated the rotor brake. You would sort of pump the rotor brake to avoid excessive friction heat building up. And once the rotors have come to a complete stop, it's time to switch off the anti-collision lights and the battery. So this concludes part 2 of the Guimbal Cabri G2 review for MSFS. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up and don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel. Also, as always, leave your thoughts and comments below this video, and hasta luego, muchachos.